Thanks so much for being with us. And,
Thank you.
you know, your background is as a former attorney general. So I'll ask you really a similar question I asked Evan. When you see that this is Michael Flynn in this key role that he played in the transition, in the campaign, in the administration, and he has pleaded guilty, what does that say to you?
What it says to me, Brianna, is that this acknowledgement of criminal guilt is a shattering moment for the Trump presidency, because Michael Flynn is one of the inner circle, one of the top advisors, not just on any old topic, but national security. And he is a potential witness against Jared Kushner, against other top officials, if they fail to be truthful, with compelling knowledge and deep credibility because of his position. And now we have a moment, similar to Watergate, where the question is going to be, what did they know and when did they know it? Not just the president, but Jared Kushner and Michael Pence, the vice president, because they were part of the transition team, and every other top official in the transition team may be a part of this Russian collusion that's involved here.
So you say this is a shattering moment for the Trump presidency. So as you see this, Senator, this is the moment where all of this cracks open? Is this what you see as the beginning of the end for President Trump? Why do you characterize it like that?
I would call it not the beginning of the end, but the end of the beginning, because Michael Flynn has knowledge that may implicate other top advisors. Two are referenced in the statement of information. And the point here is that it's relevant not only to Russian collusion, but also to obstruction of justice. Remember, Jim Comey was fired by the President of the United States, Donald Trump, because he wanted to stop the investigation of Michael Flynn. That very investigation that today has culminated in this guilty plea. And so Michael Flynn is going to have knowledge about the president's potential obstruction of justice. Now's the time for the Judiciary Committee to move forward with legislation that will protect the special counsel, because now there's more urgency than ever that the Trump administration, particularly the President of the United States, may renew his threats and intimidation, may in fact attempt to politically interfere, and even fire the special counsel.
So what tells you that Michael Flynn knows and is willing to provide that information? When you look at him pleading guilty, there's one charge. We're looking at up to 5 years, although the judge cautioned he could say more or less there on a potential prison sentence. What is it that tells you Michael Flynn has, as Robert Mueller and his team would see it, the goods on the administration when it pertains to Russia and potential collusion?
Two key questions, Brianna. Let me take the second first. As to why he would continue to cooperate, there's a lot more here than just a single count of lying to the FBI, even though it does carry 5 years in prison as a potential penalty. Compare that single count to all of the possible criminal charges and convictions that could result in even greater exposure. His dealings with the Turkish government involving the prime minister there in a potential kidnapping scheme, the potential for tax evasion, for not only the Logan Act, but also his failure to register. Each of these violations carries very significant penalties, and at any point that he shades the truth or fails to be forthcoming or in any way compromises what is an agreement of cooperation, he will be subject to potential greater charges. And, by the way, since you mentioned it in your report, his son possibly as well. Now, as to the first point, what assurance is there that he knows? Well, he's having a conversation with the Russian ambassadors, several of them, in December, about matters of extraordinary importance to national security. That kind of familiarity, the ease and the content and substance of those conversations indicates a pattern and practice of dealing in the past and possible collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians. And his knowledge, his position as national security advisor clearly indicates that he has a lot of knowledge with a lot of credibility.
CNN now reporting, Senator, that Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law and senior advisor, was the, quote, very senior member of the Trump transition team who directed Flynn to contact foreign governments, including Russia, on that UN resolution. What do you see this meaning for Jared Kushner?
It is increasingly apparent that Jared Kushner knows more than he's telling the committees of Congress, that he has to be subpoenaed to testify in public under oath, that he has already failed to provide the documents that he has been requested, and a subpoena is more necessary than ever now for him by the Judiciary Committee, as well as Donald Trump Jr., and anyone else with knowledge that can be relevant to both the obstruction of justice by the president and his team, and also the collusion with the Russians to interfere in the campaign. So short answer is, he has a lot of answers to give about what he knew and when he knew it about this illegality.
President Obama, when he had an audience with President-elect Trump shortly after the election, actually warned President-elect Trump against bringing Michael Flynn into the White House. Then you had Sally Yates from the Justice Department warning the Trump White House that Flynn lied about his communications with the Russian ambassador and that he was actually vulnerable to Russian blackmail. But then the Trump administration really did nothing until all of this was publicly reported. What does that tell you that it took that becoming public?
One of the mysteries here, Brianna, is how the President of the United States could tolerate, for as long as he did, someone who potentially was subject to blackmail by the Russian government as his chief national security advisor. That is reckless and irresponsible in the extreme for the commander-in-chief to put our troops, our nation in jeopardy in that way. Is really, call it improper, call it illegal. Those terms may eventually be shown true, but certainly it was reckless and irresponsible.
All right, Senator, I want you to stay put there for me on Capitol Hill. We have new information coming in about the identity of one of the senior transition officials that Michael Flynn spoke with about his communications with the Russian ambassador. We also are wondering